Very good morning. You're watching NDTV Profit and India Market Open. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. With me is Niraj, Shah, and we're looking forward to a bright, fresh start this Monday morning after fairly good news coming in overnight. Niraj, the data, employment data, non-farm payroll data, which was expected, came in showing unemployment dropping higher than expected, but also wages not growing too much. So that soft landing premise is looking positive. So one big positive global cue. But is there going to be some hesitation after 6 weeks of run-up in the Indian market? Dum hai abhi?
Yeah, and we'll get to that, Tamanna. But just the fact that a hotter than expected US report didn't hurt the US equities. Is it now that the US investors are saying that even good news is good news because we expect the Fed to do a series of rate cuts even if the economy stays hot, and could that actually be conducive? I think that's what probably played out in the US markets, but we are not complaining, Tamanna. Last week this happened. MFAUM crossed 50 lakh crores. First 8 days of December we've seen $1.3 billion of inflows. The bull run continues.
The bull run definitely continues. The question is that can it keep up the steam? So let's take a quick look at just a very short cursory look at the big stories over the weekend and the global sort of cues to keep an eye on. So number one, Wall Street continued its dream run. In fact, the S&P hit a new high after jobs report and consumer survey data. So what is this data which is giving some kind of comfort to traders all across the world? First, the November unemployment rate has dropped much faster than expected. So you would think that means that there is more demand. Yes, there is more demand, but when you go into the details, the wages per hour hasn't increased too much. So that shows that perhaps not too much of a fear of inflation. And then there's a University of Michigan study which has shown that consumer sentiment is positive and the expectation of inflation is lower. This all put together is giving the hopes of a soft landing, and that later this week on the 13th of December, when the Fed meets for the last time in this calendar year, they will perhaps give some clarity on when they want to start cutting rates. So that's the big story. The 10-year Treasury, though, on those unemployment numbers did inch up to about 4.2, but nothing dramatic or drastic. Crude continues to be largely benign. It recovered to about $76 per barrel. There is some kind of talk that Russia and Saudi are trying to put together a formula for production cuts, but not everyone is on board. So that continues to be largely a story where crude will be soft. So crude soft, Treasury is okay. And the US economy looking like it's set for a soft landing. What's happening domestically? What are your key factors?
Yeah, I mean, just the point that so we've seen buying, and that is, the data, and I'm sure you'll point it out the exact number, but it seemed okay on Friday. It just seems very, very difficult. The trade setup, it's just very tough to build a case, Tamanna, for an immediate correction purely due to stretch valuations, because right now the market seems to be in a scenario wherein individual traders and investors believe that let's buy high and sell higher as opposed to buy low and sell high. I think that's the phenomenon currently. And the Nifty PCR, sorry, I think the number is missing here, but the Nifty PCR at 0.96 levels indicates market neutrality there. So the market-wide positioning is neutral. People are taking stock-specific action. There's no dramatic. I mean, sure, energy had a 5-6% uptick last week, but is it possible to make a table-thumping case that go out and buy energy? Difficult to say. And therefore, is there a sector in mind aside of banking out there? Don't quite know. So JM Financial has a note today wherein they are saying that let's go out and buy information technology, but that's a specific technical-based trade. It's difficult to build a fundamental case for IT currently, except for the valuations. Energy has done its bit. Can you think that it'll do more? Maybe not. So from a pocket perspective, you believe that the one pocket which you can safely say might do well is banking. And we've seen across both PSUs and private banks do well. And if you believe that the political continuity premium that would probably have come post-elections is going to come in the first half. If that is the premise that you have, then you have to bet on banking, because that's the larger bucket where FIs will put in the money. So large banks, PSU banks, the SBIs of the world, all of those could be in focus. So I dare say everybody that we spoke to on Friday, Tamanna, at the event as well, unequivocal bets on banking being the key sector to focus for the next 6 months. I don't know what happens in a day's trade per se, but otherwise banking remains the center stage from a positional trade perspective for almost every investor, large, mid, small.
Just a quick note over there before we go into the details of fund flows on Friday and the astonishing figures for December, is that we ended up speaking to a complete dream set of investors, market names, top corporates at the NDTV Profit launch. And if you missed what they said, go to ndtvprofit.com for more on that. Now, let me just come to what the fund flows have been on Friday and why this is becoming an important part of the story, because we need to figure out where the smart money is heading. And FPIs on Friday bought 3,632 crores, DIS sold about 400 odd crores. But in December so far, foreign investors have put in close to 26,000 crores in just 6 sessions of December so far. So just for some perspective, in all of November, they bought about 9,700 crores. And this is in a month which is supposed to be lean. We have to see if that sort of December holiday spirit comes in and those flows trickle down, but the direction seems fairly clear. Should we start off with the key stocks?
Yes.
Because, in a market like this, you need to also get a bit stock specific to see what is happening and where the news is. And typically after a weekend, there is a huge inflow of news coming in. So we've tried to put in the most important bits for you. GMR Infra, definitely one to watch, and that big news came in of GQG Partners acquiring about 4.7% stake in GMR Airport Infra. We're going to be doing a piece, and in fact, Niraj will be doing a piece on the editor's cut in a bit of from now on how the aviation story is picking up from the Indian perspective, whether it's airlines or airports, and GMR Infra becomes a very interesting story in itself. Its subsidiary will be raising 3,200 crores to partially finance the phase 1 development of Bhogapuram International Airport. If you just look at the kind of numbers of domestic flyers that we're seeing consistently month on month, so not so much seasonality, but now you have consistently Indians traveling comfortably no matter what the ticket prices and the crude rates, and that is really now pushing up the prospects of companies in this business. So GMR definitely one to watch out for today. Subros would be the other one. So the Union Minister Nitin Gadkari had said a few months ago that all the cabs in trucks have to be air conditioned, which is where the driver actually sits. There is a deadline for it now, which is in October 2025. And Subros is one of the largest listed companies that makes this mechanism. So that's one to watch out for. A few pharma companies, I would say, have interesting news flow on it. We'll have to see how much they react though. Dr. Reddy's for one. So the US FDA has issued a Form 483 with 3 observations from their Hyderabad R&D center. That's post-inspection. Dr. Reddy's will be, and overall pharma has been sort of the weaker of the pack in all of last week's trade, and it's not great news there. Cipla, a little bit of news and positive, I would say. They've received a US FDA approval for vasopressin, which is a diabetes support drug. Max Healthcare has some news coming in. They've acquired Starlit Medical Center, which by proxy, in a sense, gives them ownership of this 550-bed Sahara Hospital in Lucknow, which is a big property. So that could be a positive for Max Health. I would add MedPlus, just because we're speaking of pharma stocks altogether, and Nomura has a report out where they've maintained a buy with a target of 974 rupees. They're expecting a large increase in private label sales by new customers, and they want to switch to generic medicine to have a positive impact on gross profit and EBITDA. But there's so many more, Niraj, today, a whole slew of stocks with a lot of news on them.
Yeah, so you've captured largely the main ones that matter. I think GMR in particular, and we'll talk about that. Vinati could be interesting. So it's commenced production of the ortho secondary butyl phenol, which is OSBP, and the disecondary butyl phenol, which is DSPB. Installed capacities of 5,000 MT and 1,000 MT. I'll confess, I don't know the exact financial implications of this, but one would assume that if a company is starting off or commence production and if there is demand, it should aid numbers, if not in the current quarter, then definitely in quarter 4. So Vinati Organics is something that I would watch out for. while Morgan Stanley's gone out and upped price targets on real estate names very sharply, Oberoi Realty has been cut to an underweight. The price target has been set at 1180, which implies about an 18% decrease from the last price. So Oberoi Realty is a downtick. Almost all the others, DLF, Prestige, etc., have on all of those, the target prices have been raised. So watch out for real estate names in the session, but particularly Oberoi, because that's the one that is sticking out like a sore thumb, if you will. And then some delivery-based data, something that we'll get to you every day. What we are trying to do is tell you stocks which have gained and wherein the delivery volumes relative to their 1-month averages are very high. This need not necessarily mean that the stocks will do well or not do well, but it's a good indicator. Now, therefore, in Friday's session, what we spotted were these 4 or 5 stocks. One of them was Indiabulls Real Estate. The price change was 9.57%, and the delivery volumes versus the 1-month average was 6 times. So significantly higher volumes marked for delivery in Indiabulls Real Estate. Similarly for Schneider Electric, 9% higher, 6.82 times. It was Mahindra Logistics which caught my eye, 5.96%, so 6% higher. But look at the delivery volumes versus averages, 21 times the 1-month average. So extremely strong showing on the delivery side for Mahindra Logistics. And Paramount Communications too, about 2.3 times volumes, 5% locked on upper circuit. Praj, Balrampur, etc. corrected on fairly high volumes. There's an LRR note today which says that this is temporary in nature. The stocks have corrected quite a bit as well. Don't know if these stocks now finally start to see a bit of a bottom. I wouldn't be surprised if this is almost the end of the kind of route that we've seen in the sugar stocks and Praj. Don't be surprised if there is a bit of a positive Q sometime this week. But this is about the volume picture that we have on trade setup today, and the stocks, Tamanna, that I think we should be, that we think people should be watching out for in the session today.
Absolutely.